Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? I was thinking about something really recently. I made a couple videos ago. I made a video and I made this off the cuff remark, and it really got me thinking. I was smiling about what I said, and it made me think of something that RuneSlinger had turned me on to a while ago. And so I'll get to that. I don't know if you have kids, but I do. I have two daughters, and they are now almost 25 and 22, which is really kind of remarkable. But my experience was, and I'm not sure if you're a parent, you may have had this experience as well, that my kids came out of the womb like hardwired. Like the personalities I saw at a 1 week old were the personalities they still have now. My oldest daughter is like high charged, and I don't want to say histrionic, but she has, when she's in a room, you know it. And she has very high emotion states and very driven. And my second daughter was the one that you weren't really sure, where she was in the house. She was just so introspective. She was in her own little world. You wonder, like, where is she? And is she okay? But you always knew where my oldest daughter was. And they have these same personalities now that they did, originally. It was like, it was their nature. It was what they came out with. And reminds me also of this story. And I'm going to get it wrong a little bit, but there's a story about a scorpion that wants to get from one side of the river to the other side of the river. And in all the various versions of this story I've heard, the animal that they interact with is always a little bit different. So we're going to go with the swan, because that's the last one I heard. But the scorpion's on one side of the river. It asks the swan, can you take me over to the other side? My family's over there. Something's going on. The swan's like, that doesn't sound like a really good idea. You're a scorpion. You'll sting me. And the scorpion's like, no, I won't sting you because we'll both drown. If that happens. So the swan finally gets convinced, okay, and they're about halfway across the river, and the scorpion stings the swan. And as the swan's dying, because I guess in this tale, your scorpion venom kills you right away. As the swan's dying, I ask, well, what did you do that for? We're both going to die. And the scorpion's like, it was my nature. It's just what I do. And so got me thinking a little bit, or I thought of those stories, or that example of my daughters. Because what had happened was I just said in this video that I forget exactly what the thing was that I was saying I was doing, maybe like inhabiting a character. It said, I tend to say I like to do this a lot, but really, in reality, it's just kind of what I do. It's my nature. And it reminded me of what I thought. I remember hearing RuneSlinger talk about it, or I couldn't remember if we talked about it or where it was. It turns out it's an RPG Day 2016, Day 10. And, by the way, this is a great place to promote RPG Day 2017. So you can hashtag that, hashtag RPG a day. Maybe I'll put a link here on that. But really cool thing where all through the month of August, we and you can sit there and answer a question a day in whatever social media you like, whether it's making a video or posting on Facebook or posting on Twitter and all that kind of stuff, and answer these questions. And the intent of this is to spread positivity in the RPG community and talk about things in a positive way. But there's a bunch of questions to answer, one a day. So anyhow, after going off on that tangent, the actual thing, which I couldn't remember if it was a study or what it was, turns out it was a class that Anthony had actually taught, and it was like a creative writing thing or something about that. But he introduced the students to RPGs, and it was a really stripped down version of it. I guess in this case, like a percentile based system, like a BRP, and he gave them an example session, kind of showed them a session they could model. So they played for about an hour. And then people were chosen to be, game masters and participants in this. And they were given like a basic set of rules, but they weren't really given a how-to. And it was kind of like, and he mentioned this in the video, but I was thinking about this already as I remembered, as I start thinking, like I do from time to time. I remember getting that first basic D&D, 1981 basic set, the BX version, the Tom Mulvey version, and reading these rules and trying to figure this game out and kind of, and they give you examples in there of, they give you some examples of play from a variety of angles. Now that I look back on it, it really is from a variety of angles. I don't think that was their intention, but that's what it was. But I really didn't have much to model from. So I was left to my own devices. Well, how do I want to play this? And so I, pretty much played the game the way I do now to a large degree. But anyhow, in this example, the students were set up. Okay, go ahead. They were in 2 or 3 groups. I forget the particulars. I'll link the video. And it was odd and amazing to see these different play styles emerging, where at least one group became very, very tactical and rolled for everything and made up opposed rolls and all these other things that they hadn't been modeled. And the other group played in what I would call probably a more narrativist style, where they rolled for things only when they were suitably dramatic. And a lot of times they were able to intuit and say, okay, well, you have a 65% chance of doing this. We're not going to make you roll for this here. Nothing that had been told to them. They were given a basic set of rules, and they just kind of interpreted things very differently. And, played this big, large session with a lot of role play. And anyhow, so, we talk a lot uh, in the community about different styles of play, different preferences. Whether it's things like the GNS model, whether it's the intentions that RuneSlinger came up with. Do you play in a more story-driven manner? Do you like a lot of like crunchy goodness? Do you like a lot of combat? Do you like a lot of tactical stuff? Are you more into your character? Do you speak about your character in the third person, almost as if you're, writing a novel? And is there all this kind of dramatic thing? This is what Spencer Holiday does here, and he walks strides into the room. Do you inhabit your character as if they were, a real person? What do you do? How do you play? And some of this gets modeled for us, but it's become more and more evident to me that these are some things that are just they're our nature. It's kind of what we're born with. Because Anthony got a chance to watch these students just naturally gravitate towards different styles of play without knowing what they were. They were new to role playing, just being given the same framework of rules, the same example, and boom, they kind of went off in different directions. And I believe, it's been my experience more and more that I believe we just kind of do things because it's our nature. It's what I do. It's what you do. When people comment on my videos, I can almost, before I see what the comment is, I'll see the name, and I kind of know what angle they're going to take because it's their nature. It's how they view role-playing games. So it's kind of funny. I'll like read like a forum post or a Facebook thread or whatever, and I'm generally seldom surprised at what various people say. Not just because it's their way of thinking, but I've come more to the idea that it's their nature. This is how they play. I'm really interested to see how my daughter plays. I'm trying to get my youngest daughter, and it's just a matter of getting enough time to play a session of something like the pool with me, and just see how she approaches gaming. It'd be really kind of interesting because I have my suspicions about what she might do, but I don't know for sure. So that'll be kind of neat. But I got to thinking about myself because it's my favorite subject, but I can also talk about my own experiences more than anybody else's. And I didn't know anything about the various theories of gaming because I don't think it really was around. There weren't any theories of gaming in 1981 yet. But as a kid, before I ever started gaming, I've always kind of lived in this imaginary world. When I played or whatever, and I would think about what it would be like to be in this scenario or that scenario. I'd read a book, and I wouldn't want the book to be over when I got to be over. I wonder if that is why I like campaign style play more, because I don't want it to be over. I want to see where it goes next. Maybe that's part of my nature. I remember reading various books and starting to think about what would it be like to be in that particular world, whatever it was as a kid, or I'd make up other worlds as a kid. And sometimes I would think about what would it be like to be Ivan in this world, but a lot of times I would think, well, no, I'd rather be this other guy, this other person, and I'd kind of come up with a character. I've always done that. And so it seemed to be kind of natural for me to do that in role-playing games, where I'd kind of step into the character. Sure, I played a lot where we moved them around like they were pieces on a board, but my characters developed personalities over time. Sometimes, personalities I was surprised by. Sometimes it was really fast. When I play Monopoly, I kind of develop a character. So, whatever I do, that sort of happens, and I kind of inhabit somebody else. It just seems to be what I do. I'm really interested in things like mechanics and probabilities and chances, but only to a point. It's more fun theoretically to take this thing apart, figure out how it all works. But in actual gameplay, there's a point when I'm saying, okay, this is enough rolls. We've done the mechanics to death here. What actually happens? I'm the kind of person that just naturally, I'm not thinking about a definite story structure, like what's going to happen here, and here's our end goal. I'm not thinking about Lit 101. In fact, still to this day, at my advanced age, sometimes people have to clue me into what's going on in a particular story from a literary standpoint. There's things that don't occur to me naturally, but that occur to other people, where it's very obvious to them what's going on. It's very obvious to them what kind of character arcs are going on. And I'll read something and go, oh, that makes sense, but it's not something that comes to me. So it's not naturally how I play games. I'm not thinking a particular story arc, like where should this go, where it's going to be suitably dramatic. My approach to game is always like, where's this going to go? I don't know. This is just what I'll do next. What am I going to do here? What will I do in the next scene? I'm presented with an idea. What will I do then? I'll have ideas and goals. My character will have those. But it just seems to be what I naturally do. I seem to naturally start to speak in the first person mostly, but kind of retreat to this third person every once in a while when I kind of give you some more insight into something that's just kind of funny. And I don't think about it, but that's kind of naturally what I do. So it's been very interesting to me, just thinking about that subject, but just observing other people and really kind of sitting back more with an analytical eye as I watch other people play in the various groups I've played in, and just see what they kind of naturally do, what they gravitate towards. It doesn't seem to be planned. But I believe talking about all these various styles of gaming is really helpful, because then that helps us find other people that want the same experience that we do. And sometimes we lack the words to talk about it. But it seems to be much less in the case of nature versus nurture. Uh, the scales seem to fall down heavily on the side of nature when it comes to role-playing games. Sure, we can learn different styles and explore them, but it seems to be that like we do what we do. We follow our nature. What has your experience been? Are you a scorpion? Are you a swan? You know, what's your deal with all this? What's your nature?